can these practices also help rehabilitate a person who is just out of COVID-19? This thing.
No, I
So,
mean,
what is the?
once you are out of a disease, you may need further
Mm,
treatment also,
mm,
because it depends on how the disease has affected. A
mm,
lot of people still have lung problems. I have seen
mm,
some patients, their x-rays are still not fully normalized. They
mm,
still have, even though they are COVID negative,
mm,
many of them are not able to, exert themselves again. So
mm,
this rehabilitation is very essential. But this rehabilitation cannot be just Swasthavrata. What we just
mm,
talked about now is Swasthavrata. It's a regimen for the healthy individual.
mm,
Now, in a rehabilitation stage, we'll have to really consider them as Vyathichinas.
mm,
They are not Swasthas. So the
mm.
treatment for Vyathichinas will have to be given.
So
So
how does?
basically, bringing
Mm,
back their Agni,
mm,
giving them specific dhatu specific or organ specific nourishments.
mm,
So especially lung rasayanas will have to be given,
mm,
which will help the lungs to recover the function.
mm,
Many organs in the body get affected. Some people, heart is affected. Some people have stroke. Some people have inflammatory responses. So the respiratory system is actually most affected.
mm.
And so, based on those specific manifestations, we will have to help them. And I think
So
here
rehabilitate.
Ayurveda can
Mm,
rehabilitation is a very, very important area that we need to look into. Much
mm,
is still not understood about the long term effects of COVID 19. But
mm,
there are reports and papers that I have also read about which are saying that because we are all now focused on treating active cases.
mm,
We are ignoring once people become negative, they are ignored.
mm,
So it seems there are stories of a lot of people who are suffering for months after
mm,
COVID 19. Life doesn't
mm,
become normal just because
mm,
they test negative. So,
mm,
even from an Ayurvedic point of view, I would say that we need to start studying it.
mm,
Uh, and similarly, we'll have to build up an Ayurvedic understanding of what is a post COVID recovery
mm,
presentations. So
mm,
it would
mm,
be not correct to make generalizations and say, I'm only telling that, they have some, many of them have Agni challenges, many of them have
mm,
Ojas is very down. Some
mm,
of them
mm,
they have particularly organ dysfunction. The
mm,
lungs, lung function is still not normal.
mm,
So we have to really study these problems from an
mm,
Ayurvedic perspective so that preventive measures alone will not be
mm,
sufficient. We have to treat them and
mm,
we have to work in that area. And I think this
mm,
is one area where Ayurvedic people should do proactively start looking at it. We
mm,
are now still fighting to get the rights to treat the patients.
mm,
We are, but we are not see. Nobody is going to prevent us from treating recovered
mm,
patients. None
mm,
of this ethical. Nothing will be there. So if we
mm,
even start looking at that area,
mm,
there's a lot
mm,
of contribution we can already make. Patients
mm,
have recovered. Now,
mm,
no objections, no problems.
mm.
You can really start helping them. So I think this is very important that we should do.
So it's all about re-establishing the dharma of the entire thing, micro and macrocosm.
Yes, yes. I think that is what humanity uh, is manifested in nature for, to discover that higher dharma consciously. All other living forms are conforming to that dharma
Mm,
intuitively and
mm,
instinctively, whereas
mm,
in humanity, this has to be in a conscious way. So that is
mm,
why nature is slowly taking us to that point where we will take the decision ourselves in a
mm,
conscious way. It's like
mm,
for me, it looks like a game of chess, and nature is just placing the coins
mm, mm,
in such a point that we
mm,
reach a point of checkmate,
mm,
and finally we will say yes, we understand. So it's a very slow process, and I can still see the compassion of nature in all these manifestations. We could have had a much more virulent and deadly disease.
mm,
No,
mm.
this shows that nature is still very benevolent. I mean, now I'm talking in a poetic way. It's a metaphorical way, but it's almost appearing like that. That nature is like a very compassionate mother, teaching us lessons in a very compassionate way, and always showing us ways, possibilities, and that we have to resurrect ourselves. You know, and that's I think the ultimate point, that point of evolution, where humanity will fulfill itself, making that big decision in our lives.
So, do you think, after all this challenge that the pandemic has posed to the modern healthcare system, do you think there is a brighter future for Ayurveda? So, will Ayurveda be more recognized as a mainstream healthcare system?
You know, Ayurveda is actually life discovering itself. So it's just that Ayurveda has been clothed in this language of Sanskrit, Indianness, and all that. The knowledge of Ayurveda is beyond even the identity of what we call as Ayurveda. So it is the most natural way of understanding ourselves and nature. So it has to, it will redeem itself. Because we are talking about, that whether we call it Ayurveda or not, this awareness is going to get re-established, because this is the knowledge that supports life. So if life has to be supported on this planet, this knowledge has to become established in the minds of the people. Now, what we call as Ayurveda is the Upadeshas of this awareness, which has been codified in the traditions, across the centuries. So the existent knowledge of Ayurveda is like a tool that we can use to recover a more deeper and richer source of Ayurveda. It's because in our tradition we have told, when Brahma discovered Ayurveda, he wrote it in Sahasra Laksha Slokas. And then it was reduced to few thousand slokas for our mind. So what we have in the form of Ayurveda today is only a fraction of that knowledge in nature. So we have to think in a very broad way. So this Ayurveda that we have, so when today we talk about preserving Ayurveda, we are talking about this physical system that we call as Ayurveda, the practitioners, our livelihoods. That's not the real Ayurveda. The real Ayurveda is more profound. It's that awareness of nature. And when it arises, it may change, a lot of the institutions and the external manifestations that we understand today as Ayurveda may be completely transformed. But I think we are going towards a rediscovery of these fundamental rules and laws in nature, which in our tradition we have preserved in the name of Ayurveda. And if we hold on to that, then that memory can be preserved. That it is that same Ayurveda which we have preserved, which is a reawakening. Because if we don't do that, if in India we don't own up Ayurveda, then we don't know whether the world will recognize it in the name of Ayurveda in the future. Ayurveda is already being taken outside India. People are changing it. They are calling it in other ways. The knowledge is completely getting transformed. So it's again there, it is up to us. Ayurveda does not need us. It is we who need Ayurveda. So if India wants to play a big role in this process of transformation, then we have that advantage. We have the memory of this knowledge in the form of Ayurveda. Will we own it up? Will we use that to facilitate this movement? Then we have a big role to play. If we don't do that also, the change will happen. People may discover this kind of knowledge eventually over a period of time. But at that time, whether it will be called as Ayurveda, I don't know. Right. Now, yoga is also going out of our hands. Yoga, it is practiced and different people are assimilating in a different way. Even its origin in India is being questioned. The origin of yoga in India is being questioned. There are so many, it's being owned by the whole world slowly. So that is okay. So, but what I would like to point out is that uh, India has a role to play. We can facilitate this process in a faster way, in a more structured way, because we have preserved this knowledge of Ayurveda. And if we take that responsibility into our hands and facilitate this, we can make a big contribution. Unfortunately, we in India, as Indians, we are not owning up Ayurveda. It's not enough if just only the Ayurvedic community owns this. The Ayurvedic community owns it as a profession. It's for their livelihood. But we must own this as the knowledge of the nature which India is offering to the world. Unless we come to that perspective, that vision, it's not there in any government, it's not there in that vision, is still not there in India. So, unless that comes, we will not be able to play a big role in the recovery of Ayurveda. I almost feel that Ayurveda may be rediscovered in content, and we may lose this knowledge as our tradition. India may lose this knowledge as its own tradition. It may be rediscovered in other parts of the world, and our knowledge may be used for that, and our identity may also be lost. And that is very much possible, unless we and I don't think we are doing it for our ego or for our identity, but because it's if the world discovers Ayurveda through our experience, and because we have still preserved this tradition, then the whole process can be much faster and much more beneficial for the world. It will be a big contribution that as a country we can make to the betterment of the world.
So how do we deal with the Ayurphobia that is there? Like you also told that the whole of India is not owning the idea of Ayurveda; it's just the community.
Yes.
How do we deal with that?
Yes, I mean, there are many reasons why people have developed this kind of aversion to Ayurveda, or sometimes even kind of hatred. Phobia is a fear, but this is even more dangerous. It's not just a fear; it's hatred. So this, I think, there are many reasons. It's not just one reason. One common thing is the influence during the colonial period, which made a big difference in China and India. In China, they were able to own up their tradition, they want to promote it. Whereas in India, we were taught to look down upon traditions like Ayurveda as coming in the way of progress. So Ayurveda has been looked down at as superstition, as irrational, thoughts of way of thinking. So the whole community feels that when you try to promote Ayurveda, you're promoting superstition, you're promoting medicine that is backward, not rational, and it is coming in the way of our development. This is the viewpoint of most modern doctors. Even in their medical schools, they are taught in this way. These are old systems of medicine. So even if they were respectable from a historical point of view, they don't have any relevance today. And sometimes looking at the textbooks, people also, substantiate, like, you find in Ashtanga Hridayam, somebody's tooth is removed by tying a thread and, tying it to a horse. And so these kind of old methods. So when you see all these things, people also, once again substantiate by saying, this is all very primitive. So they don't understand that there are principles and then the applications. So applications can change. The principles can remain the same. And so Ayurveda has been, renewing itself, making it Yuganurupa. This is something which classical texts also talk about, Yuganurupa Sandarbha. You have to make it according to the times. So that kind of a modernization alone is needed in Ayurveda. It does not have to be discarded. That people don't understand. Another reason is also professional rivalry. So I know that many allopathic doctors in India, even if they are getting experience of Ayurvedic treatments being effective, they would prefer to ignore it because there is a professional rivalry, there is a territory being defined. The allopathic doctors do not want other systems to come and, you know, uh, encroach their territory. Yet another reason is the way medical education is modeled in India. You know, Ayurvedic people are usually the fallouts, those who don't get admission to modern medicine. They come to study Ayurveda. So there is a perception that people who study systems like Ayurveda are taking the shortcut to become a doctor. So they are not really worth, you know. So that is also creating a sense of inferiority, not only within the Ayurvedic community. So many I always tell students when I meet them, Ayurveda students also, a modern doctor starts the course with a thumbs up. You know, they are, yes, I got into this course, I've achieved something. Whereas an Ayurveda student, the first year BMS is a thumbs down situation. I failed to get admission in modern medicines. That's why I'm here. So they begin with Vishada. And unless the course is really very effective, you know, they will not overcome this Vishada even when they are completed the course. And that is why in India also a lot of modern allopathic, Ayurveda doctors are still practicing Western medicine also, because this is the way of this thing. So that also fuels the feeling in modern doctors that these people are competing, that they are studying BAMS and then practicing modern medicine and competing. Yet another kind of thing against Ayurveda is the pharma companies, you know, because they have a strong hold. So any preventive measures, Ayurvedic approaches like whole system, they are not good for marketing or making big money. So the pharma companies are very much against these systems coming into the mainstream. So in Europe and other countries, they have made the laws very difficult for traditional system to get recognized or practiced. And yet another thing is also the political, you know, political thing, the saffronization concept in India, that this is part of this, you know, Sanskritic, Brahminic viewpoint. And by promoting Ayurveda, we are promoting this saffron approach, that political ideology. And so some people are against it because of that. So if you look at the reasons here, they're very different. So we must understand, when I try to confront a person who's against Ayurveda, I always try to diagnose what is the reason for their hatred. It's not always the same. So each person we have to deal with differently. So some people are against because of professional rivalry. So the way you converse with them must be different from somebody who is against Ayurveda because of political ideology. Will behave and their perspective is very different. So these are some of the trends that I have seen. Some people, because they are from science, so they say Tridosha is an old theory. Today we know that it's molecules, and so how do we believe your system? So each person has one of these, perspectives in their mind when they are working against Ayurveda. So it's possible. The only way to deal with this is to address all these as Purva Bakshas and, give proper answers to them in a friendly, dialogue where we clarify our position. So the problem is that we have been also emotionally reacting and we have created a very volatile situation rather than understanding why people are thinking differently against Ayurveda. We are all in knee-jerk reactions. So now it's a very volatile situation. If anybody from any of these segments do something wrong, we also react, and they will also react. There is no attempt to understand each other. So that is what I think is the problem. And so what we need, so when we are dealing with this Ayur phobia or Ayur hatred or whatever we call it, we need to understand to whom we are actually speaking to. And then we should be able to dissect their thought process and then present our view. Otherwise, it's not going to be effective. And that's why I think the dialogue is also not happening in a very healthy way.
So, like you said, when we see the Western authors, they are doing the desaffronization of Ayurveda, while in India it is overly saffronized.
Yeah, and I mean, many people in the West have actually contributed also to bringing the spiritual dimension. That brings me to another aspect, that Ayurveda is part of religion, it's part of spirituality, and that's why it is also disowned. Even in
Hmm.
Kerala, there is a strong attempt to delink Ayurveda from its spiritual and religious morals and make it more, just medicine.
Hmm.
So, but it is in the West that the spiritual aspects of Ayurveda has come up in the West also through its spiritual foundations much more than in India. So, if you look at many of the teachers of Ayurveda in the West, they are emphasizing more on the spirituality, on the
Hmm.
wholeness. And this is why I also said that we might lose Ayurveda in the future.
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
knowledge may get
Hmm.
rediscovered, in
Hmm.
other parts of
Hmm.
the world in
Hmm.
different concepts, because we
Hmm.
are not able to own it here because of
Hmm.
our complicated way of thinking.
Hmm. So, what now? Now that we have also spoken about the rehabilitation, so if at all we assume that this is going to be soon over, the whole pandemic thing, what is the possible outlook for the humanity? So, will there be a paradigm shift in the way we look at things?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to predict this at this time because
Hmm.
there's still many uncertainties,
Hmm.
and especially in India, we are still seeing the curve
Hmm.
going up. I mean, there's no
Hmm.
sign of its flattening.
Hmm.
Although death rate doesn't seem to be alarming, but there are
Hmm.
also people are pointing out that we have not been counting the deaths properly, we've
Hmm.
not been counting the cases. So
Hmm.
it's challenging and difficult to assess what
Hmm.
trajectory it is going to take in the near future. One thing that is for sure is that it's a long haul, and we
Hmm.
have to be prepared to deal with it.
Hmm.
Now, the outlook for the future will very well depend on how we are going to handle this pandemic,
Hmm.
how modern science, medicine, technology succeeds, in discovering a vaccine, for example, can completely change the way we
Hmm.
look at things.
Hmm.
So there could be two ways in which we handle this pandemic. One is a short-term solution,
Hmm.
and the other is a long-term solution. My only fear is that a short-term solution may hinder us from adopting a long-term solution.
Hmm. Hmm.
And a long-term solution alone
Hmm.
may create a lot of
Hmm.
immediate casualties. So
Hmm.
this is a dilemma.
Hmm.
I have asked myself because if there is no vaccine, if there is no antiviral, the only way we can deal with this pandemic is to change our ways,
Hmm.
change our lifestyle, change our interaction with the environment. Everything will change.
Hmm.
Maybe that is the way it should be.
Hmm.
Sometimes when I am thinking in that way, I'm thinking loudly.
Hmm.
But then I also think about, if that is the case, then if there is no vaccine, then more and more people are going to get infected. And if there is no antiviral drug, then many of the people who get into hospitals
Hmm.
may die because all of them may not come to Ayurveda also.
Hmm.
And so there's going to be a lot of casualty. So when you look at it that way, you may also think, why not? Let there also be a vaccine. Let
Hmm.
there also be an antiviral drug. The problem is, for diseases like AIDS, many other hepatitis B and all that, we have not been successful in getting a very powerful vaccine or even an
Hmm.
antiviral drug. So that
Hmm.
when you look at it from that point, for COVID-19
Hmm.
also, in spite
Hmm.
of all this enthusiasm, we don't know whether we may get a successful
Hmm.
vaccine or even an antiviral drug.
Hmm.
So if we don't get it, then the future is very clear that humanity will
Hmm.
have to go through a very radical transformation. But my thought process is that why can't we have both?
Hmm.
That there be a short term solution also
Hmm.
when you look at it compassionately. But
Hmm.
why can't, because it's not enough warning that these kind of pandemics are coming again and again. And slowly we are realizing that vaccines and antivirals are not the only solutions for this. So I think the future of humanity is going to really depend on what lessons we learn out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We really have a very good future, a future in which humanity will rediscover its inner potential and reach higher, levels of evolution only if we learn the lessons from COVID-19 pandemic beyond just the medical issues. We must look at COVID-19 as a warning of the ways we interact with our environment, of the ways in which we control our own desires and whims of the human mind. The COVID-19 is yet another warning of the consequences that we will have to face if we don't live our lives in a meaningful and responsible way. So nature has given us that power of our intelligence, the power of technology. It's still allowing us to use that and find solutions. But if we rely only on that, if this is going to result again in only the victory of human technology and arrogance and intelligence, then I think the future is not very bright because we may have to face more such problems in the near future. So I hope that the COVID-19 pandemic will bring that sense, awaken that sense in us, that a deeper transformation, a change in outlook and paradigm is what will take us into the future. And nature is not forcing, nature is still giving us choices. So I don't think COVID-19 by itself will bring about such a forceful change. It will open up paths before us. It will show you the possibilities. It will show you, on the one hand, you have a short-term solution, you have a long-term solution, and it's for humanity to take the decision, to make the choice. And what choice we make, I think, will make all the difference for humankind in the future. Because even if humanity were to be wiped out from the face of this earth, the universe will continue. So it's not the universe that is at stake. It's not nature that is at stake. In the ultimate analysis, it is we and our lives that are at stake. So we have to take the decision. And I hope good sense will prevail.
So it was very nice it was an honor interacting with you, sir. So you also highlighted on many aspects of epidemics as per Ayurveda. So it's not just the medical aspects, but we have to look at the bigger picture, which actually talks and deals mainly about re-establishing the dharma, both in the micro and macrocosm. So it was truly an honor to be interacting with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure participating in this conversation. So I'm really glad to see that we were able to discuss this COVID-19 challenge from different perspectives and different angles, and also, dwell upon very critical, issues related to practice, research, the way Ayurveda is perceived in India and the world. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for inviting me, and it's been a great pleasure and honor to share my views. Thank you.